We are live. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the Athens
Okay.
Justice and Memory Team Project.
Mhm.
Our mayor assembled this team in September 2020 to work toward avenues of atonement and the resolves in the outline in the Leonardtown Project resolution. So we've been actively working together since then. So thank you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
Okay.
okay, first thing we're going to do is we always start the meeting with the moments of silence. So let's do that now, please.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
This moment of silence, it just acknowledges and shows respect for those who are no longer with us from Leonardtown. I have a good announcement to make.
What?
1 year ago today, the resolution was voted on and received a unanimous vote. Everybody clap.
All right.
All
All right.
Yes.
Mhm.
It's come a long way.
Amen.
Come a long way.
Amen. Mhm.
1
It's
year
come a
ago
long way.
today.
Mm. Mm.
So I want to thank everybody, take this time to thank everybody for hanging in there and for taking steps forward, sideways,
Mhm.
back, but we have been together. We
That was
followed
me.
down. We've helped each other back up,
Uh-huh.
Yes.
and we stayed the course.
Yeah.
It's been a lot.
So thank everybody for us getting
Yes.
to where we are today.
Yes.
Okay, for
Thanks to
those
you,
that
Hattie. Thanks to you.
thank
Thanks
you,
to Hattie. Yes. Mm-hmm.
thank you, Christine, and for those on the phone, if you have if you have want to say something, then announce it so we know who's talking. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's Christine. Okay.
Okay. For those, I just want everybody to know you're going to receive mail outs if you're on the phone with the presentations. I'm going to pick them up tomorrow and mail them out tomorrow to you. So everybody knows that, because sometimes people want a paper copy and they don't want to look at it on the computer. They want to lay it out and have it on the table. So if
Yes.
you're
Yes.
going to give it to Bobby, Christine, and Freddie, and
Mhm.
myself, anybody else, if you want a copy, let me know.
Okay.
First of all, we're going to start with report outs. No, we're going to talk about the minutes. The minutes were sent out. Don't let me, team, do not let me forget this about the minutes. The minutes were sent out, and if does anybody have any amendments for the minutes? Okay, we're going to go ahead and go through the procedure of a vote. All those improve the minutes to be accepted.
Aye.
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 Poses? Okay. The minutes stand approved.
Mhm.
Okay. We have Jen Rice has been working her team and Jen and her team has been working hard on this walk of recognition. And she's also been working hard. Shayla's been involved, and Blaine has been involved, and I have been involved, and Mayor. I mean, we have been back and forth and around. Now we're at a presentation time, and Jen has had meetings with the First Descendants, community meetings. I just want to thank you, Jen, and all your entire team for what you all have done thus far. So with that, if you want to go ahead and present.
Okay, so Sayla has the presentation. I see there's sun coming in. 1 minute, let me close this door. Oh, I'm still lit up like I'm so like, okay, we'll just work with it. It's nice. It's a sunny day. Okay, thank you all for letting me present today on pretty much I'm going to try to cover everything we've done since this concept was started. And I'll sort of discuss where we've been. Everything I'm going to discuss today, we've talked about previously on these calls and in other formats, except there is one also exciting thing. I get to show you all some of the preliminary designs and artwork for the Lennon mosaic from the students from the class last semester. So some of you have seen it, but many of you have not. And again, those of you on the phone, I know that's going to be disappointing to not see it until it arrives in the mail, but we'll do our best to describe it for you. And don't hesitate to ask questions for clarification throughout. So I'm going to cover where we've been, show you a few new things around some ideas for design, and then hopefully we can figure out next steps as a group. That's really what I want to do today, is figure out next steps. And thank you all for your support. Many people have been involved in this. You'll hear lots of names throughout the project, and just all the collaboration and support has been really wonderful. And I hope people are excited to move this forward, because we all are. Okay, next slide, please, Selah. Okay, so the Lennon Walk of Recognition is what we've been calling this. As a reminder, it is it's three historical, what we conceptualize it as being is three historical signs that have information on them about Lennon and other features of that we want to tell on these signs that are yet to be determined, because we need, the exact content. We would need to work with the community and a professional firm for this. But we'll have three historical signs along Baxter Street. And then we'll have the one artistic installation, which we discussed in this group, is it being a mosaic. Okay, so it is literally a walk along Baxter, along Finley. I apologize. I think I said Baxter earlier. Along Finley, south of Baxter. I've got a map on the next slide. So we've got, not yet. Hang on, wait, Selah. It's hard. It's okay. So just what you're about to see is those three, approximately where we would propose putting three historical signs, and then where we want an artistic installation. You'll hear me often refer to a class. That was a class that was conducted last semester, led by Dr. Lynn Saunders Bussell, who has just been wonderful on this project, lent so much expertise and time, and has really in care for this project. So Dr. Bussell and myself, we led a graduate seminar to work with the community and the descendants to start to sketch out ideas for a design for the mosaic. So when you hear me say the class, it's that class that took place last semester. We had 14 students, I believe. They did, you'll see in the presentation, they did all kind of work. It was all community driven, all driven by the, discussions with descendants to think about what a mosaic might look like to honor Lennon. So that is the point. As you see there, it is the mosaic and the entire walk of recognition. The purpose is to remember, honor, and teach about Lennon, and also the history of urban renewal, right? Which we know took place in many communities. This is not the only instance where we had communities destroyed by urban renewal. So as I mentioned, it would be located along Finley Street, south of Baxter. Okay, now we can go to the next one. The inspiration came to me and others on the committee, in this committee and in the community, a while back when we saw what was going on Sweet Auburn Avenue in Atlanta. They have multiple historical and informational signs, and they actually were just completely redesigned and reinstalled. They were updated that talk about the history of the Sweet Auburn neighborhood, its importance in the civil rights movement, important businesses, church communities. Martin Luther King Jr.'s home, for example, is located along this. So there's precedent for this just down the road in Atlanta. So you can see two signs there. They might talk about a store that was important, or other things. So you can see signs there. Go to the next slide, Selah. Again, you see another informational sign. Theirs are you can see they've just been redone. They're quite modern. They're points you read, you learn when you engage, when you come up to the sign. You see imagery. They can be interactive with like QR codes or something. But the inspiration from the mosaic is what you see on the right there, is that at one of the ends of the Sweet Auburn signage is the mural, right, that we see there, right? So it looks, it looks really wonderful, and it honors important people, and it is an artistic installation that is powerful and important, right? So you can kind of see the general concept was like, oh, this is wonderful. So the John Lewis mural there. So sorry, I realize people can't always see it. So, it's the really powerful image of Representative Lewis, the word hero right there, that is important to sort of think about how we can have artistic representations as well. Any questions so far from those who can't see the PowerPoints or anything? Okay. So Sweet Auburn Avenue is inspiration. We can go to the next slide. Here, okay. So here are key votes in our meetings related to this concept. The general concept for the Walk of Recognition was approved in these meetings, in the public meeting on December 7th, 2020. I think I gave a PowerPoint, not too dissimilar from some of the stuff that's here. We talked through it. We had some discussion. People liked the idea, and we agreed that this was an idea that we as a committee thought would be cool, like good to pursue for the purposes here. Okay, so that was a while ago. I do think that date's important because we can, it's December 7th was when I was kind of told, hey, you're in charge of the subcommittee. This is a concept. We like it. Let's develop it and see what it could look like, right? Over a year ago now.
Yes.
Yes, that's why so much work's been done. So, all right. So then there was funding allocated by the mayor and commission that I read in the minutes. I do not know when that happened. I was not able to search through the commission minutes, but there is funding that exists for this. There is a funding pot. Okay.
That was a part of the FY22 budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mariah.
Oh gosh.
June of 21.
Yeah.
June 21. Now we can come back to that, but hopefully those funds don't go away. But we'll come back to that. Then through conversations with people, many wonderful supportive staff at the city, including Stephanie, who's here, and others, I was put in touch with Lynn Saunders Bussell as somebody who does public art, who could think about a way to work on this project. I met with Dr. Bussell. Dr. Bussell has this public art mosaic process that she has done in other communities. We discussed it in this meeting. People on April 19th, Dr. Bussell was here on these call and said, here's what I do. Here's my approach. I do public art. It's all community driven, community art for social justice. And in the subsequent meeting on May 17th, we voted in this group to approve working with Dr. Bussell. What's important about that is Dr. Bussell designed an entire class. She's a public education teacher in the art school at UGA. Designed a thoughtful, detailed class to work on a community-driven public art mosaic and help think of designs, bring the community in, get input and ideas about what people want to see, what it should do, what it should look like. I did co-teach that class with Dr. Bussell since I have expertise in urban geography, so I could bring in the components of how local governments work, histories of discrimination, segregation, urban renewal in cities, questions of social justice in cities. So we taught that class. It was a great class. If Lynn's watching, that was one of the best experiences I had in my life. Thank you for doing that with me, and I'm excited to show some of the results of that. So we had that class. Before that, though, we had site visits, so to speak, for the Walk of Recognition with the manager, who was very generous to share time and come talk with us, and other key staff on multiple occasions. But in particular, I recall July 22nd. I believe Commissioner Parker was also at that one. And we walked, there were folks from Transportation and Public Works. I believe Stephanie from Art was there. I mean, we had an awesome crew. We had inclusion office representatives, and we knew what the concept design was, the 3 signs and the artistic installation. And we walked that street and talked it through. And we figured out, like, signs could go here. And we determined, and Dr. Bussell was present, that the best place for the mosaic would be at the corner of Baxter and Finley, because there is an area there with vegetation that could be slightly modified to put a structure And so this was all developed with wonderful staff input and support. Then I engaged in regular meetings between myself and inclusion office staff throughout the fall of 2021 to tell them what we were doing in the class, our needs. We had support for community workshop materials and refreshments, for example. Basically, most of the duration of that class, I kind of acted as the liaison between the class and the JMP in my role as a JMP member. We even had staff members generously share their time and visit our class to talk to the students about concept ideas, how to meaningfully engage the public. And since then, I've tried to give regular progress reports, progress updates, and in that on these calls. So hopefully, for those of you who have been in regular attendance, this is all ringing bells, so to speak, as stuff that I've mentioned before. So I'm being thorough for a reason, right? So we can make sure we know it's all happened. Are there any questions so far about what has happened, like the kind of ways that in this committee we have formally decided that we like these plans? We brought in Dr. Bustle in a thoughtful way where we voted on it. A class took place where there was regular communication between the teachers and city staff, and reports here on these calls. Are there any questions?
No, I don't have any.
Okay.
No.
So now the map that the folks on the phone unfortunately can't see shows you then on the next slide, I believe. Oh gosh, it's weird not to run your own presentation. Sorry, Sarah. We'll get to that in a moment. So where does the authority come to do this work? We're trying to work within the domain and the charge that we were given. The idea for Walk of Recognition was not something that I made up. I was working on something that Ms. Hattie asked me to do, right? And that was part of the charge and the resolutions. So you see here, this is our charge. I've highlighted where the charge for the JMP, the Justice and Memory Project, clearly indicates this is within the realm of our work. So formal site markers, right? The signage, and then the mosaic as an artistic form of site marking. And then educational efforts for the public at large. There's so much to share with you. When we do these community workshops, when we did them with the mosaic, we teach about Lenontown. We're doing that work. So we're doing both those things. It is not just the markers themselves. It is also part of the public engagement and education that this committee is supposed to be doing. Okay, next slide. We also took some direction and some sense that we had the authority to start to do this work from the actual resolutions themselves that the government passed, right? So highlighted there, recognizing the history and legacy of Lenontown and its descendants to the installation of what was called a wall of recognition. Admittedly, the wall evolved into a walk, but why not go and do the best and the most exciting thing, right? So the initial verbiage was a wall of recognition. It's a multi-sided walk now that we talked about in these meetings. Okay, next please. So here's the map. Maybe my order was a little off. If you see, for those of you not able to see, we're seeing Baxter Street running roughly east to west, and Finley Street running roughly north to south. South of Baxter, west of Finley, which would have been the easternmost edge of Lenontown, is where we would like to install these signs and the mosaic. So the mosaic, as you see, is number 1 at the top there. It's just at the corner of Baxter. That's where our proposed site is, at Baxter and Finley. This, through discussions and site visits, discussions with staff and site visits, was determined to be the best possible location in the right-of-way. We've been to that site. Lynn and I went out in the blazing sun to that site with various people last summer so many times. It's hot out there at 2 p.m. in July, let me tell you. So we did some work to identify that location. There currently is some vegetation, but there's pending right-of-way questions, which we'll come to in a minute. That's where we would like to install the mosaic. Then in the right-of-way between the street and the sidewalk, going further south, you'll see there's stops where we would put the informational signage. So one sign on urban renewal, roughly across from where the urban renewal sign appeared. South of that, one sign about Peabody Street, the importance of that part of the neighborhood, and then on the furthest southmost, information about Linden Row and sort of what life was like there. So that's the component. So that's the sort of general concept. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's the functional part of the kind of the general concept that we've discussed and approved in these meetings. So now I want to talk, this is some specificity that you've maybe not gotten. I want to talk about the mosaic, right? I've learned so much about mosaics working with Dr. Bustle, and it's wonderful. So mosaics are made of pieces of tile and mirror. You're seeing simple examples on the screen. So for those of you who aren't able to see, if you remember, it's broken pieces of material, tile, mirror, ceramics. I mean, even sometimes objects can be in there, and they're arranged in such a way that when you step back from the pieces, you see an image. You see a larger image. So you see two examples here. Okay, so the initial designs have been drafted as part of this art education and geography graduate seminar. We had extensive input from the community and descendants. We had 2 community workshops. We had a workshop with many descendants that Miss Hattie helped organize, first, second descendants. Did we have third? I mean, we had multiple generations, many people in attendance where we talked about design, function, form. And we also had a meeting with ASALA, where we got their feedback, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Our students helped us do this too, I should say. So they were learning about mosaics, they were learning about urban geography, and they were doing community engagement. It was just a phenomenal class. So the 2 main components that we have to talk about are a base structure. So there has to be something built, erected, that's like concrete. And then you can put the artwork with the tile, mirror, and other objects on top of it to create the imagery. And again, I want to stress that the way Dr. Bustle has done this in the past, it is a public art project, and it's the way we've been doing it so far. It has extensive input from community and descendants. It's built with help from the community. Dr. Bustle has a process by which if you're in the community, you can come. There's pieces of tile, you know where to put them. You can actually put it on the structure when we're actually building this thing. It creates dialogue, it creates connection. It is a meaningful, powerful experience to not only have the community and the descendants give input on the design, but then actually be able to come and build it if they want. I mean, this is unlike any kind of public engagement art project I've ever seen before.
It's so cool.
And we have the funding allocated from the city and the support of the city, and we'll be building it in the right of way. Okay. Any questions so far? Next slide. Nope, no questions. Okay. This is an image.
I have a question. I'm Christine. What have you all decided what will be on the mosaic? I mean, the pieces, or would it just be the people that we will be able to help decide what will be on it, or what is just going to be art, or what?
Yes, excellent question. There is no final design yet, in part because we still want input. It is a process. So our students kind of, and again, you'll get to see this when the actual slides are sent, the packet is mailed to you. You'll see in a few moments, the students have proposed imagery that could go on it. And when we get to that, I'll describe some of that. But the exact final design of the artwork and also the base structure is not final yet. Where we didn't feel comfortable. We hoped to have gotten there at the end of the class, but we felt as though we needed a bit more time to consult people like you and others, and get more feedback.
Christine, you remember when we had the meeting with the first and second descendants? We saw some of the items. Yeah.
Yes.
Those were just ideas, but nothing has been set final yet. We're going to probably have another meeting, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
So what you're seeing here is a project that Dr. Saunders Bustle did in Lafayette. It's much more extensive than you can see here, but I just wanted to put the one image in, and you can see there's a person and there's water flowing and it turns into train tracks, and you can't really see it here, but the sun is shining, and in the sun rays, there's words like, I think it's courage and hope. I mean, so there's imagery at all different kinds of levels, right? And Dr. Bustle designed this with the community and installed it with the community in Lafayette, so has experience doing this, okay? Keep going, next slide. Okay, so there's a question mark next to location now because we do have a right-of-way question that arose a few months into the process, but I know these things happen. So we want to put this structure here, the southwest corner of Baxter and Finley. There's a picture here for those of you who unfortunately can't see. This would be what we call the street view. We'll have to remove a few trees. That's awful, but okay. We can replant them somewhere else. I'll personally replant a tree somewhere. Anyway, we'll have to remove a couple of those trees, and then there is, assuming we have, assuming this right away question gets sorted out, there's a space between the street and the sidewalk that the city owns that they have indicated they'd be amenable to working with us to install the mosaic here. So this is the street view. So when you're driving down the street, you're going to see one side of it. So that's what you'll see here. Now go to the next slide. This is what we call the sidewalk view. So this is just the other way. Again, imagine a couple trees are gone. Now there's a structure there with a mosaic on it. The cool thing about this location is people can walk up to it on this side and interact with it. So you can have really kind of like fine imagery on it. You can have mirrors within TPW's guidelines. I know there's guidelines. You can have mirrors so people's faces can be reflected at them. We can have steps that you step up on or sit on. I mean, there's all kinds of things so that you can interact with this structure and the imagery on it in a really meaningful, powerful way. You can, right? So this would be basically at that top corner, and then you'd keep walking down Finley and you'd encounter the historical signs and learn more about Lennontown. So it's a really it's a thorough public education, public engagement, honoring Lennontown, atoning for Lennontown. It really is a comprehensive project. Okay, next. I'm almost done, I promise. I just figured I'd just put everything in one place so we have it on tape. So we did, as I mentioned, community workshops with the class in a pandemic. Wow, we met every week in a pandemic. We wore our masks. We for hours. We had workshops outside even when it was cold. I mean, we powered through even though we were in a pandemic, still in a pandemic. So we had 2 community workshops at different locations in Clarke County to talk about the design and the artwork and receive information. You can see some pictures there. We want to have more. More workshops. Okay, next. And as I mentioned, we also met with a group of descendants and we met with Asala.
And also I got input from the church.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You discussed it at the church. Quick shout out to the class. A couple folks are not pictured here, 2 folks, but this is the vast majority of the class. They had social media up and running so we could, communicate that way. We had emails. They sent flyers to businesses and churches to invite them to these events. They designed the workshops, all this. So I just want to give a quick shout out and oh my gosh, thank you. And this was the wonderful class who helped us with what you're about to see now is initial design. So next, please. So this has not been seen by everyone. And I'm so sorry those on the phone can't really see it. But this is an example that one student drafted up of what the mosaic could look like. It's so interesting. So if you see here that the bigger image is what you would see from the sidewalk. And one thing that emerged from our discussion with everybody, in particular descendants, but everybody, was they wanted the mosaic to capture life in Lennontown when people were happy, children swinging from vines, neighbors supporting each other. Then they wanted urban renewal to be depicted, and that's sort of that red slice there. And then they kind of wanted the present day advocacy to be depicted. So you see there's kind of like people holding signs. This is just one student's mock-up. So it really captures the whole story of Lennontown, right? Not just one aspect. And it kind of lets you engage with the different history and different things that happen and different emotions and other feelings that would be coming from that. The smaller picture on the bottom just says, remember Lennontown. That's the street view. The students thought it should be simple because you're going to be driving by it, right?
Yes.
Or you're going to be on the other side of the street. So some kind of mosaic that says, remember Lennontown can be what was proposed for the street side. Okay, I know I'm running long. A few more slides. Next. So we got some possible structures. Go on to the next one. So this is the class came up with these through the workshops and discussion with descendants. For example, the descendants really liked the red gash and really pushed the students in that way. Many of our earlier designs for the structure that the mosaic would be on did not include that, but that felt powerful to the descendants. Many people in our community workshops also liked that. So you see, without going into too much detail here, these are just ideas that would be the base structure. See, so our students have done a lot of work. Okay, next, please. And then quickly, I'll just let you see some artwork. Yep. So these are the kinds of things. So that students picked images from life in Lennontown before it was erased by urban renewal. So daffodils, tulips, magnolia trees, elephant ears, right, Miss Hattie?
Yeah.
We need a pair on there. That's my favorite story, but um, all these clotheslines. Keep going, and so keep going, Asela. So these are just examples. Knee-high soda, chicken coops, cast iron skillets, jacks, children playing, hopscotch, and all of this imagery, the students can tell you where it came from. It came from a story. It came from Miss Hattie's book. Like, they thoughtfully collected ideas of what would depict life there before destruction. Okay, now keep going. And then they kind of thought about some things that would depict the destruction through urban renewal. So bulldozers, houses on fire, ditches, eviction notices, the kinds of things that would depict that trauma of the time when the houses were being acquired and destroyed. And then on the right there, you'll see some ideas for like present day activism sort of things. So picket signs, City Hall, BLM, Black Lives Matter, these kinds of things. So I think I only have one or two more slides. So that's just examples of artwork that the students have started to conceptualize. So next. Oh yeah, a few more things. And then you'll see Remember Lenintown, some very basic kind of text that could be done with the mosaic, okay? So that would be on the street side. Okay, last but not least, what do we need? Thank you for your attention for half an hour. What do we need? We have kind of stopped our work for a variety of reasons, because we need the proper next steps to be taken place. So we need to hire an interpretive graphic design firm to create the historical signage. That needs to be done by an expert firm. That's not a community-driven project the way we've conceptualized it. There's actually a company in Atlanta who just did Auburn Avenue that's actually expressed interest. You know, there's experts out there who can create these historical signs in you know, with the community, right? But they can do it. That's one thing we need. We need to get that RFP out there. It exists. It has been written. It's sitting somewhere. Okay. Number two, we need to hire a site manager for the mosaic installation. Dr. Bussell, and with my supporting role just as another teacher, Dr. Bussell will be the facilitator of the community engagement in public art. And Dr. Bussell's doing that for free, right? I mean, that Dr. Bussell's incorporating this into her own research and curriculum, and I will support her in that as just somebody who also does research and teaching in that area. But we need a site manager who oversees this thing when it's built. That needs a dedicated staff person. We need materials for future workshop. Lynn is still doing workshops. She's doing some with high school students this semester. We're getting emails all the time to come do a workshop on the Lenintown mosaic. We had an MLK Day of Service event that got canceled, unfortunately, to do a workshop about the mosaic. It filled up in like a day, you know? And a couple of last things, and I'll be quiet and let y'all give me feedback. We need resolution of what the right-of-way is that exists on Finley and Baxter, particularly where the mosaic would be best located if possible. That is under investigation, is my understanding. But we need to know, what are we working with? Because we can't give you a final design proposal. We can't give you one until we know what we're working with on a right-of-way. So there is no final design proposal for this committee or anyone else to review until we know what we're working with for space. And like I said, Dr. Bussell is doing these workshops, continuing to do workshops, and we'd like to do more community workshops in the future, but we want more clear definition of kind of the time frame for how this would be implemented. Okay, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? If not, we're going to move to action items. Anybody?
Well, we need feedback. Oh.
I said questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Blaine.
Thank you, Miss Hattie. Thanks, Jen. That was great. And I appreciate you capturing everything in one place. That really helps for understanding. The one clarification I wanted to make, I know that I think staff had communicated, the closer that you get to Baxter, from a traffic engineering standpoint, anything that's tall is going to block line of sight. So we had talked about a low slung initially. The closer you get, the further away you get from the intersection, then the taller it can be. I just want to make sure we covered that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we are happy to work with all the. We understand we need to work with regulations for safety with TPW and others. Absolutely.
Mayor, did you have your hand up?
I did. Thanks, Miss Hattie, and Jen, thanks for the presentation. Actually, Blaine, I had a question for you just from a process design perspective. Uh, for the mural component, not for the interpretive signage that we would engage a formal placemaker around to work with the community to come up with that sort of historical walkthrough. Would it be our capital projects director or the arts division of leisure services or some combination, that might sort of be the helm for that activity?
And if you're talking about sort of the site project manager, so, and Jen, and correct me if I'm wrong, so what I understood from Jen and Dr. Bustle, that the community's activity would be placing pieces in the mosaic.
It can be. We would hope people would want to come do that with us. Yeah. Yes.
When we say project manager, Kelly, I think Dr. Rice and I are on the same page. So that's a pretty substantive base that we're talking about that's going to require foundation. So there is some technical work that needs to be done, probably by somebody with some construction experience that the public wouldn't be doing. And that's what we mean by hiring somebody to kind of put the base there. And then, as Jen said, I think the Dr. Bustle takes over with the community process to adorn it.
That's helpful. I just wasn't sure if that was in-house or that was going to be.
Hang on, that's not exactly what we're hoping for. We really want a site coordinator. Like, we need someone who can be in charge of materials, who can coordinate people coming, who can keep an eye on safety, who can interface with the city on regulations if something's confusion. Dr. Bustle and I can do a lot of that. We did, because we were hoping to have someone in that role already, but we have to have a dedicated personnel who is fully focused on that thing getting built, and it getting built safely, and it getting built relatively efficiently, right, with the community. So we actually need someone not just to pour the concrete, so to speak. We really need a dedicated staff person. It's probably like 10 hours a week or something. I don't know that it's a full-time job, obviously, but we really, I think Dr. Bustle was stretched beyond what was really anticipated last semester.
I think you're talking about like something like a site coordinator.
Yes, site manager, site coordinator. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with anything Jen said. Yeah, but Kelly, that's where I was differentiating between one of our staff folks versus somebody that can do the construction as well and help to coordinate that. So that's one important piece, but Jen said it covered it. Yeah, there's other things they need to do as well.
Mariah?
I'm sorry if this was already addressed, but I think first of all, this is so exciting. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Thank you all so much for all your hard work. I was wondering that this is in an exciting way, very different than a lot of our public art processes that we go through. I love that it's super collaborative, but in that, I wondered if, like generally we do some sort of call for artists.
Give me a minute. Okay, how you doing?
Good. What can I do for you?
I can take this off.
Yes, you're fine.
So my wife said to get some beach shoes and earring shoes.
He needs to be muted.
Somebody needs to be
I want
muted.
some of what he's having. Yeah. So generally we go through like an artist selection process where we have like a call for proposals, etc. And so I was wondering how that sort of maps onto what we have planned here, because we have been working with Dr. Bustle. And so, yes, that's my question. For the more interactive components, I think we already talked about like on the staff side of things what we need, but in terms of the actual installation of the art and overseeing that process.
I think I can speak to this part a little bit. So this is different than the normal processes. I'm Stephanie Rains, by the way, the Arts Division Administrator. And so public art with the Athens Cultural Affairs Commission is like part of my work with ACC. So coming from that perspective, Commissioner Parker's correct, like that is a process that we do it with the Cultural Affairs Commission. And this process has been different from that. So one of the ways we have approached this is seeing this as like, this was a community-led design process that will culminate in like a design concept for the mosaic structure. And then the mayor and commission will have an opportunity to review that and decide, approve or make notes, and then we can take those. And then from there, we can look at we have looked at a number of different choices. So I'm not saying these are exactly what we're going to do, but some of the choices could be like hiring a site supervisor to execute the creation of the work. And we could use a comparable process like an RFQ, so a request for qualifications instead of a request for proposal. Since we have a design concept, we could open up an opportunity for people to submit their qualifications. They could present their resume, their examples of their work, that they have created artwork in this manner or done construction projects comparable to this, that they have significant experience working in a community, art creation. They have they can work on site. And so then we also can, that sort of brings the labor, if you will, into a way that at ACC Gov, we have some ways for which to like compensate and like work within our given systems. So that is one of the ways that we have talked about approaching this, to bring the mosaic sculpture like into real life.
Sounds awesome. Cool. Thanks for that clarification.
That's perfect. I mean, one thing that is important to stress, and I think if Dr. Bussell is here, she would, is there is no single artist. Right. That is another thing that makes it different and challenging, which is why what was just described by Stephanie is wonderful, because that's kind of the whole point of it. This isn't commissioned by one person who decides what the story of Lindentown is on a mosaic. It's continually discussed until we finally decide we've gotten somewhat of a pretty good set of input. Because no one person's determining what this mosaic looks like. It's iterative. It's in multiple workshops. So there is no single artist. I love the request for qualifications. It's like, who's qualified to execute this kind of art project? They would obviously have to know about mosaics, right? And also manage that site. That is perfect in terms of what we could see to bring this to life. Yeah.
I mean, I just think that's so cool. And I mean, even kind of reimagining what our general public art processes could look like, and bringing in more community engagement through having like a site coordinator that, oversees like collaborative art like this. So anyway, I'm super excited. This is so cool. I'm done now.
I have one question that I still am kind of trying to figure out, because of the participatory art piece that we know is collaborative, that we want our community to be able to come together with the tile pieces and all of the things that they've created with their hands, but then also physically place this. However, there's a structure that, based off of the photo of what Dr. Saunders Bussell has done before, I'm guessing was the wall already existed and that process was affixed to an existing wall, but we didn't have that.
Correct.
And so my question that I'm still trying to kind of navigate is how and what is the process for the actual, like, that structure that you sent us with the gash in the middle, and that, like, who's building that? And is that a construction company? What's the process for getting that piece? Because as I understand it, that's not something that a project manager in this landscape that we're expecting them to take on. And there's insurance, there's a lot of other pieces that kind of have to be identified for that physical structure and safety, etc.
100%.
Were you thinking that you were going to get an answer on this call for that?
I guess I'm just trying to understand the physical structure piece. Understand, like, that may not come in terms of like the anticipated size or what have you until the right of way is squared away.
Right.
But in terms of that physical structure that we do not have, where those trees are, that we're going to affix these pieces to, is this something that this group envisioned being done by someone here, that we contract out, that this is a project manager duty? That would typically, I think, be a part of an artist process, right, Stephanie, if I understand it correctly, but we don't have that. So in the absence of a centralized artist, we're going to have to get creative and follow processes on a different way that still kind of fit the needs for everybody here.
We probably, that piece is going to have to be looked at. We can't, we're not going to be able to resolve it in this meeting.
Sure. We received feedback from somebody. I can't remember who.
But it's going to have to take place, but we can't.
Yeah.
I appreciate you asking that question, but we can't resolve it here.
And I anticipate Blaine or Nikki, one of
Right.
the other of you would sort of just walk the process through that physical component. You know, I mean, if I would contrast this with the sort of recently erected chicken and egg
Yes.
installation that's at the Cooperative Extension Building, you know, that featured sort of a physical foundation element and then obviously a sort of surface element. You know, that's what I think people or passersby think of as the art. You know, in this case, we're sort of separating those two components. There's the sort of physical installation, which obviously follow a form that's of the desire, but within the right of way. And then there's the community participation, which is that exterior shell, so to speak. So I anticipate staff can help us with that.
Yeah, we were told by somebody that seemed to really know, I can't remember who it was, that we interacted with during the class, that you would just hire an engineer and construction firm. You would show them the general design. And in fact, we had students in the class with background in building who pointed out that some of the structures that kind of have that arrow-like feature, I know we looked at them quickly, but would have to make sense from an engineering standpoint. So we have taken all this into consideration, that there's a form that has to be poured as concrete, and it's going to have to be engineered and be structurally sound. And if a car runs into it, it needs to not, Stephanie's explained to me it has to do this and not do that. If a car, so we're very, very aware. It's a matter of hiring an engineering and construction firm that then would bring the structure shape to life and build it.
And to be clear, the unified government would do. Sorry, Blaine.
No, I'm sorry, Nikki. If I could, maybe this will help everybody. So it's in the big scheme of things, with all the construction going on, it's not a large project. And as someone pointed out, we have. So I think it's a site coordinator, as we've all agreed. I think it's somebody that we hire to do this work. It could well be an artist who is supportive of the project, who has experience in, building a large sculpture and is deferential to the design that the committee votes upon, that Dr. Bussell, Dr. Rice will help bring to life. So I do see this as hopefully a turnkey project. We hire a site coordinator. They'd be responsible for supporting the project, causing that structure to come into being, and cooperating with the design concept approved by this group, and then coordinating well with the final outcome.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Blaine. Blaine, while you're there, can you let us know about the right-of-way? When will that be sort of completed? I know you've been working on that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I know that Sayla's been working on that as well. So I think, Sayla, do we have that survey?
So they have started, sorry to interrupt you, Blaine, on this survey and the mapping, we are estimating another week or two before we get that back, but they have started on that.
Great.
Thank you, Sayla. Thank you, Blaine. So we got that one item checked off, and it needs to, as soon as when you all get that, can you email that out so we can mark that off? Another thing
that will help Lynn and the people designing it actually start to nail down what it will really look like in terms of size. And then we can actually show you one image that has a structure and artwork on it. So we're not going, what is it going to look like? Yeah. So the right of way is basically necessary to understand what we can actually do. Sorry to interrupt, Miss Hattie.
Okay. So once you send that out, I think we can nail down the size and the scope and all of that. So thank you. Thank you all for doing that. And the next, I think, action item is to get this in front of the presentation in front of the mayor commissions, so we can release some of the funds, so it can be approved, I could say.
And Ms. Hattie, what I would anticipate is this springtime, kind of March or April timeframe, bringing this in front of the commission at a work session, and probably with some connecting tissue that describes the broader memory and justice teamwork, just so that everybody has sort of an update on what's been going on.
Okay. I would also like to take that opportunity to talk about and bring everybody up on what we have done on the Black History Center and what needs to be done. And at that time too, is that appropriate, Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, within the sort of context of
Yes.
and of course, obviously the Black History and Culture Center sort of has overlap between both this group and then I know lots of other community groups. I've tried to continually emphasize the notion that this isn't sort of a sole government activity. It really is an activity that we're supporting, but is happening well
Yeah.
beyond the government.
We have a lot of community groups that has been assembled working on things as far as the Athens-Clarke County Center for Racial Justice and Black Future. So, but I just want to bring everybody up on the date on that and hopefully be able to do a presentation then. I know we're running over time, a couple of minutes.
I have a clarifying question, Ms. Hattie. I really just want to understand next steps, if people can hang on for a few more moments. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
So I want clarification. Are we awaiting, so again, we have the walk of recognition as a single concept, but we have two different items that have to be funded, right? Paid for. The signage, which is a separate company, and then all the components of the site manager for the mosaic. Is that, when we're presenting that, is it an informational item to receive feedback from Mayor and Commission? And we actually already have the funding and this is going forward. We're just waiting to get some sort of discussion with them, or do we need some formal approval and vote? Can that be clarified? What is the actual next
Both,
step that
Jan.
needs
What
to
we
be
would be
followed?
doing is doing a presentation for the commission, just so they understand, like, essentially what you presented today
Okay.
in terms of what the physical contours look like,
Okay.
as well as the process. And then what we'd ultimately have is an agenda item that approves this as a publicly funded activity. And so you'd have a sort of source of funding from the dollars allocated in FY22 budget, and then the anticipated cost, both in terms of the sort of exterior placemaking element and then the artistic component as well.
Wonderful.
So what I would have y'all do is work with Blaine and kind of designated staff, probably include capital projects folks, to tidy up that agenda report so that it'll come in front of us.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Mayor, if I might, I'm sorry. Also, just the general design concept of the signage and the mural in general. You don't have to have a finalized design. And Stephanie, you can help with this if we're trying to follow, some semblance of the old process. So that, the public's put on notice and the commission understands the design concept ideas. Not that y'all have been holding back on that, but that would be, I think, also part of the approval in the wake of the work session.
Okay, so let me just make sure I heard you correct. You need a more, did I hear you say you need a more developed concept?
No, I don't think so. I think you've done really well here. And
Okay.
I mean, obviously, but I think the basic concept is, signage and then the mosaic. And and so they would just sort of, it's just a check-in point for the commission. I don't see there being any issue. I see them, being excited about it.
Wonderful. So we don't have to say like, this is exactly what the mosaic's going to look like. This is the exact structure, the exact artwork. We just need to say, these are concept designs that as we continue to work with the public and identify a site coordinator who will also serve as somewhat of an artistic, also collaborator, then the final details will be determined. But we don't have to say like, this is the exact thing you're going to be getting.
And Stephanie, I want to default to you, but I'm just kind of going with our typical Cultural Affairs Commission that you get approval on the concept, then you do additional work, and then you might do that final check-in when you award all that. That's my gross understanding. But Stephanie, would you suggest something different?
That's very close to it. Typically we get a pretty good, but scale and size and placement are generally, and I know we haven't arrived at that yet because we're still waiting on the decision about where we're going to actually put it and sort of the scale of it. I think that's important information to be able to present to the mayor and commission if we have it. But I think that, Blaine's correct. I think the design concept to this point is not going to radically change and grow 6 feet or whatever. You've kind of got the idea of it. And I think you have done a lot to convey how it will actually come together with all of this literal community input, actually people putting things into the clay. So I think it'll just a few of those details about its placement, its scale, and then you'll be like right there. So we're quite close.
We'll be leaning on your help, Stephanie.
I'll be with you the whole way. I'll be on with you through your whole design process, so like I can help make sure that we're getting everything and keeping it on track.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll just look to you for what we need to have in terms of for the presentation in terms of specificity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or any input?
I just wanted to add one thing because I know, Jen, we are super close to that RFP for the actual historical signage. There are still some things I think that need to be ironed out in terms of the language that you're looking for, the like photos, or if there's any exact details that need to be added to the scope of services within this RFP to go out to these design firms. I think that we need to identify that before it goes out to bid.
Okay, I'll follow up with you. I recall being pretty happy with where we were at the RFP and that it let the design firm kind of figure out which stories and information would be on each sign as opposed, you know what I mean? But perhaps I need to look at it again. It's been several months and see if we can give some more specificity to like, this is the content you'll be working with. Here's the materials and the ideas. I'm happy to try and maybe we could just do it in a brainstorm session, talking to each other instead of line editing. That's all.
Yeah.
That gets a little unruly.
And Stephanie, I'm so sorry to keep pulling you into things, but definitely we'll lean on your expertise if possible there as well. The language is completely from the resolution. So I just, in terms of the artistic piece and ensuring that we're getting the product that we're really envisioning, or this group is envisioning, I just want to be as detailed as possible in that RFP.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Anybody else have anything you want to talk about or?
Yes, I have a question. I mean, I know that everyone isn't here, but I did want to know if there was any discussion about the rescheduling or postponing of the retreat that was going to happen in January, but was kind of postponed due to COVID numbers.
That's the one that you were going to lead at the library, Mayor Gertz.
Yes. So, numbers are falling. They're not at the point where we're in sort of mask-free territory in terms of the contours of our ordinance right now. If we continue on this trajectory, we'll probably be there in a few weeks. But I think when we know for sure that we're there, that'll be the time to go ahead and schedule an in-person session.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? Any questions? I'm going to get the presentation mailed out for those individuals that are on the phone. We have some action items. So let's try to get those done before our next meeting next month so we can move forward. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you so much, everybody. This committee has really run with this idea and the students have been amazing and the community and descendants. And this is beyond anything I could have imagined it would have turned into when we first started this. And everybody who hears it is excited and just wants to see this thing and be part of it. And I am honored that I have been trusted with this process. I mean that truly and sincerely. I every day feel like I'm honored to work with you all and do this work. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank all your team members. We appreciate it, and meeting is adjourned until next month.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Zayla. Bye.
Bye.